So hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to the Intuitive Art Show. Today we're talking about feeling alive and changing your career with Cricket Wingfield. She is a beautiful soul. She's an amazing example of how you can take charge of your life and be a leader of your own life and do multiple things with it. You don't have to just stick to one path. And she's also an artist, so hopefully we'll get up on the blog some of her artwork so you can see that. And this episode will be over at intuitiveart.com, and you'll be able to see all the show notes, and you'll get her link there and see her artwork and her bio. But before we get to all that, we're going to start off with a little piece of intuitive art. If you're unfamiliar with my method, it's basically just a way of talking to your higher self to get really great wisdom and clarity. And we offer a free class at intuitiveartacademy.com. And what I asked this morning was, can you give me tips on making a career change? Because I think the biggest thing that scares people when they're, on one path and then they have an idea to move to another one, or maybe they don't have an idea and they just know that that's not fulfilling them anymore, is there's this sense of giving up something known and comfortable. And I think that is what stops people most from moving ahead. So that's why I wanted a tip on how to do that. So we'll look at the drawing. It's not the prettiest of drawings, but it has some really good colors. So it has action up here. It has the mental or thinking color underneath. And then over it is this brown color, and it's a very light brown. And so it's not, when brown to me is grounding. So when I have the different shades of brown, it's like with this one, you just have to have one more step than an idea, one more kind of spoke in the ground that you can hang on to in order to make that change. So what I'm getting from this is that in order to make a career change a little bit more palatable, you're going to have some energy to move through all of the probably little minutia of talking to people, getting interviews, getting another job set up, knowing that you've got enough money in the bank in case you can't get a job quickly. You're going to have a lot of energy for that. So get in shape, start eating right, kind of prepare for that if you're wanting a career change. And then down here, having the idea is great, but then you're going to need at least one more tangible thing to get you there. You're going to need a contact, a place to stay. You're going to need some sense of security to know that you're going to be okay on the other end. It doesn't have to be a big one, but it's going to have to be something. So if you can prepare, then it'll be much easier on your psyche when you're actually doing it. So Cricket, do you have any opinions on that? I'm sure, because you've changed a couple times.
I have changed a couple of times, really. Yes, just a little bit about my story, if that would be helpful. I was a business major in college, and people always ask what I was doing there, because I would ask questions like, well, what about corporate responsibility and pollution, and how are we going to do that? So that was many years ago, before it was mainstream. But I finished in that and decided later I wanted to become a doctor. So I went back to do that. That took me 10 years. And I became a family doc, did my residency at UCLA, and then was the medical director at Pepperdine University during my medical career. And then I kind of lost heart in that. I got more interested in the hearts and minds of people than I was in their lab tests and body parts, and decided to leave medicine and take a break. So during that time, I ended up opening a brick and mortar business with a friend, and ended up taking that over and becoming the president and CEO of that, and ended up with $1 million business within 3 years, which I thought it was going to be a fun little hobby, and it turned into this major business with lots of employees and books to manage and things. And then I had that business for about 8 years and started to just wear out of doing the retail thing and restaurant, and wanted to kind of get back to more where my heart was, which was working closely with people. So I took a little break, and found coaching. So I got certified as a life coach, which I love. And it gave me a language too that I didn't have in medicine, because in medicine you learn a lot about, as the instructor, I'm the teacher, and I tell you, okay, here's what's going on, and here's how to do the yoga pose, or here's what medicine to take, or here's how to manage this. But what I didn't have was that language of enrollment, and how to really dig in and help people find their own path and their own heart and their own goals, say around their health. At that time, I wish I'd been able to walk in a room and say, well, what are your health goals? And how can I support you in getting there, right?
That's fascinating.
Because what I've learned is it's not just what we know. If it's just what we know, we would all be making perfect choices all the time, both, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. We would be consistently supporting ourselves at every level. But there are other levels at which we make our choices. So coaching was great for me, because in addition to the other skills I had, it now added that language of connecting with the big why. And once we connect with our why and what's important about something, then there's a whole other part of us that clicks in. It's like, oh yeah, alignment. I'm getting aligned with what I really care about. And then making choices comes from a whole different place, right? And we start separating out all those voices of the culture or the parents or the teacher who put us down, or, many people have wonderfully supportive parents and teachers. And so those voices could support us, but also the ones that don't support us so well, and that we internalize and need to learn to separate from our own voice and really tap into that authentic self and that authentic desire. And so now I work to support people. I call myself a business and productivity coach. But what I'm really about is helping people become more alive and authentic. And I love the Howard Thurman quote about what we need more in the world is people to come alive. And I'm paraphrasing, but don't ask what the world needs, ask what you need to come alive, and do that. And so I like to support people in that. And I bring my knowledge of business and health and wellness and my 4 decades of spiritual practice to my work. So
that's really beautiful. And, I want to just point out that you've walked your talk before you got into helping other people do it. And I think that's almost a rarity, unfortunately. There's a lot of new coaches out there who have all of the best intentions, and that's exactly where they should be. But they just don't have the experience of doing it themselves. And I see you have such a wealth of knowledge that you can share and experience. And what experience gives you is a key into the mindset shifts that have to happen. Because really, unless you've walked through something, you don't know what it feels like internally. You can only guess. So I'd love to ask you some questions on how you felt when you knew that you wanted to change. Because I think most people don't know what it feels like to feel alive, especially in their everyday life. Maybe they've had experiences of like being in love, or when they have children or something like that. But on a day-to-day level, most people are still in that not alive zone. Can you tell us, maybe what it felt like, or what thoughts you were having when you were still a physician and kind of feeling unfulfilled?
Yes, and I've experienced that a couple of times, both when I was a doctor, and then also again, before I sold my business. And what I noticed is just that excitement and enthusiasm to get up and go. like I started to dread the days, and I realized that my energy was really like my whole heart wasn't in it. Like I could show up and do a good job, but there was a part of me that was out or just uncomfortable. And I remembered back to something I read at age 14 or 15, I think it was, when I read Damien by Hermann Hesse. And he had this wonderful thing. It was about the bird fights its way out of the egg. Who would be born must first destroy a world. And I think that particular quote from that book has stuck with me at lots of different phases in life. And I think it's sort of like that chicken, right? Where everything just feels too tight. There's nowhere to stretch out and feel the bigness and the great, the aliveness. It's somehow that feeling of being in that little egg, and I'm getting too big for it, and I'm going to just have to start pecking away at this.
Yeah.
And I loved what you said about your drawing, and I think it's really important that, don't kind of quit your day job initially. Have that anchor, right? You can have that anchor so that you have the stability, because it takes a little time to get, I think, really clear about what it is you want. It's great to have support, and even with support, it's like, okay, I'm feeling like I want to move in this direction, but how do I know that's true, right? And how do I make sure that I have my basic human needs met, excuse me, while I'm developing that business? So there's a practical aspect to it as well. And I know that a lot of the people that I've coached and helped have started from a place of doing it on the side, right? In addition to their day job, and have then, with the support and with planning and action steps, like you mentioned, and shifting the mindset, really growing and changing the way what we're willing to settle for. And I think that has a lot to do with that feeling part you were asking about earlier. To circle back, it's like, yeah, I want to feel that aliveness. I want to be excited about how, first of all, I'm the leader in my own life, right? That I'm putting my self-care first, because that's what the world wants from us, is our best. And we can't give it if we're depleted. So we've got to feed ourselves. We've got to do it physically with good sleep and exercise and good food. And from that point of view, not because I should, but because, again, it's like, that's what makes me feel most alive. I feel better, and I'm excited about my life when my health and my vitality are at their peak. But also, we need to nurture ourselves in whatever way we do that, spiritually and intellectually and emotionally, with our closeness and our connections. And it's like, how do we have that wholeness? And I think that's part of aliveness, is both the self-care and being willing to push a little past our comfort zone, right? To that next level, to say, who could I be if I weren't bound by limiting beliefs, or whether they're internal or coming from what would people think about me, or any of that we're just meant to be alive, that we're put on this earth with a purpose. I believe that there's, like, that's our job, is to dig deeply into our hearts and find those things that make us alive and go for that. And it doesn't mean being irresponsible, but it means it's like a yes and instead of a no but, right? It's not an either or. We can have financial success and be responsible and dig in. I guess I'm kind of a rubber meets the road spiritualist, we've got to walk it, we've got to live it. And it's not always easy.
Yeah, well, we have bodies for a reason. So we're getting a little echo.
Okay.
That's better. Yeah, we're here. We're on Earth. We're physical. We're supposed to take action and feel and be and do and interact with others. And I'm totally with you there. But I want to go back to that quote. And the other part of it, of course, was the destroying of a world. And I think when we're moving into a new phase, whether it's a new relationship or a new career, we're leaving behind something and we are basically dismantling it, or we're taking ourselves out of the equation there. And I think there's probably a lot of worry before doing that, right? Can this survive without me? What's going to happen to all the people who are involved? Like, did you refer your patients to other people? Were you worried about upsetting staff? Or, how did you manage both times when you exited? And did you feel any of those emotions that might have tried to keep you in that place?
Yes, I did. And I got a lot of feedback from people about leaving medicine. I think that was the hardest part was, I went back a little bit later in life to do that and put in 10 full years of training because I hadn't had a science background. I had to do the pre-med, and then I worked at Stanford for a year and then went to medical school and then went to residency. And it was a 10-year process for me. And it was a privilege to be able to do that. And not everybody who wants to do that gets to do that. So I had to overcome some of my guilt about, I took a spot in medical school that somebody else who might have had a lifetime of passion for it didn't get to have. And so there was a little bit of guilt that I carried about it. And then other people just said, oh, what a waste. How can you do this? You've worked so hard and we need primary care physicians. And, there was just a lot of external disappointment and disapproval, I guess, and as well as that internal. And yet, again, that egg was too tight. It's like, yes, I probably could go on doing this, but isn't that exactly what I don't want for my life, which is to just do the rat race, be resentful, be disappointed. And so that call to answer my own heart was ultimately bigger than whatever guilt or and I, as I said to people, wouldn't you rather go to a doctor who really wants to be here?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, yes, I can do this, and my heart's not in it anymore. Mm-hmm. And I think when I sold my other business, I was really ready to move toward being closer to people and working with people. Even though I had a ton of fun, it was like this very creative process for me to own a business and to be creating a beautiful space for people to be in. And I loved that part of it. I kind of like being a hostess, and that sort of, I think graciousness is like that. I like being that role of gracious hostess. And so having a business of welcoming people and that kind of thing was really fun. And it also felt like, I get to live this too. I get to have this as part of my life and this experience. And I want to have a bigger impact in the world at a deeper level. And not that there's anything wrong with that. It just, I was done. And I think that just that feeling of, just that feeling of I'm not excited about this anymore. I'm not sure I'm bringing my best to it anymore. Mm-hmm. So for me, the security was less of an issue. Like I knew I was going to be okay and have a roof over my head. So I know for some people that's not the case. And that's why I say, let's see if we can't find a way to do that too, and start building it so that you can leave your day job, but you can do it in a way that feels good and support your needs and meet your financial needs even better than your day job, right?
Yeah. I know that part of it is surprisingly, like, once you have everything set up, it's so much easier to make money doing your own thing than it is in a day job. At least I've seen and found for myself. And that surprises people a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. But I want to mention one thing is, there was a lot of energy needed in my drawing, and I'm sure a lot of the people listening who are in a place where they're not excited to go to work every day, they're like, oh my God, I'm exhausted. I don't have any energy to do anything. I can't start it on the side. But you've probably found, and you've been talking about this, when you're doing something in alignment with yourself, when you're mining your own heart for ideas and inspiration, you get energy. Mm. Your body fills with energy when you're focusing on things like that. And they can, it's kind of a self-sustaining project. As long as you're doing the things that fill you up, on all those levels, you're going to get the energy you need. So that's kind of less of a concern knowing that, because I think the whole time and energy thing can be a big worry for people when they're embarking on a new thing, especially as something as big as, oh my God, I'm having to create a business all on my own now, which for a lot of people is the case. They're going to create their own thing. Mm-hmm. So have you found that to be true too?
Well, I have. I would say yes, that there's so much to that. Like when you're excited about something, right, there's more energy in it. And the other piece that I think is really important is that idea of prioritizing that. I find that now, even though this is my business, right? I don't have the day job. I'm doing this. And I still need to prioritize. It's like, mm-hmm. It's hard. You're probably not going to be able to stay up and watch your shows every night, right? And sort of sit in front of the TV and grow your business after work. Unless you do it on Saturday or Sunday or something, right? Mm-hmm. But it's a little bit like for everything we say yes to, we say no to something else. And for everything we say no to, there's room for a yes. So I think getting really clear on priorities is a huge piece in this. In addition to having that energy, it's like, oh man, I've got this great idea. I just want to go write about it or talk about it or do a video about it, something, right? Mm-hmm. And there are always parts of the business that are a little more challenging. There are always pieces that aren't as fun. And so to create the space for that, I think that's, and so that you have the energy left over, right? Yeah. It depends too on where you are in your life, but I know for me now, I need to manage my energy. And that's as important as managing time, is to save energy for the things I really care about.
That's interesting. So talk to us more about that, about managing your energy and kind of saving it for special things. What does that look like?
Well, for me, it means really being attentive to my self-care, first of all. Making sure I get enough rest and I get exercise, because those things really feed me. And then I take time to meditate. That is a great way for me to connect to myself. Some people journal. I think that self-connection is really important. Art is another way that feeds me. And then, but it's also then choosing. There may be things that I choose not to do because I want to create something for my business. And if I do that, then I'm going to be spent for the day. I mean, sure, I'm going to do it sometimes when I don't have a big project I'm working on or something, but to go downtown to the Saturday market, I live in Portland and there's tons of fun things to do. But if I go sort of out walking and lots of stimulation and, I'm going to come home and need some downtime. I'm not going to feel like jumping right into writing or maybe I will, who knows? But for me, it's kind of, I notice it's that blend of getting enough stimulation, but also not getting overstimulated. So it's like, yeah, I have energy for what's arising in me, and I'm paying attention to that in addition to all these other great sources of inspiration. And so that's all I'm saying. It's kind of managing my commitments. I have to not overcommit so that there's time and energy to do it all and still take care of myself, right?
Yeah.
Because to me, that's the first step in any venture, is staying tuned to your own heart. Because a new business can be just like anything else in terms of pulling us out and away from ourselves if we're not really mindful about, okay, what wants to happen now, and staying in the moment as we grow and evolve.
I'm so glad you said that, because I see a lot of people, and it's understandable if you're coming from a life where you aren't so fulfilled and you're constantly kind of, in that little egg and under the thumb of a lot of other people. So you have bosses or, a spouse who may be not so supportive of you moving into a new venture. If you create your own thing, you still have to be the one to create the priority list. You have to be the one who now puts yourself first, because no one else is going to do it. And so if you're not used to that, it can be so easy to just forget that that's the reason why you're creating the new thing. Do you have any advice for people on how they can create kind of a self-centered life, or how can they start minding their heart? What is the mindset shift to get them into that place where they're regarding themselves first?
Well, that's funny. I have named that mindset radical self-care.
Nice.
And what that means to me is an absolute commitment to your own self at a deep level. And what that looks like might be a little different for everyone. But I would ask people who are listening, what would it take for you to make that commitment to yourself? Why would that be important? I mean, I often use the analogy of the airplane and the oxygen mask. They always tell you, put your own on first, because you're useless to anyone else, and unless you do that. And that model of self-sacrifice only leads to depletion. And we can't be our best when we're depleted, not on a sustainable way anyway. Like our financial safety net, right? If you have an emergency fund, well, if you spend it every day, you won't have anything for the emergency. And I think our time and energy is being that same way, that why is it important to care for yourself? Why is it to have that? And then to start building in some structure. I think that's where that action part is, that took a lot of energy, right? It's like it does take energy to change our patterns and the way we've been thinking and the way that we have maybe managed our lives. I mean, I've been the classic self-sacrificer. I spent some time in Montana at a family home, and I'm the one who will make it all happen, and I'll burn myself right out. Or that's my old pattern, and make sure everybody else is having a nice vacation. And by the end, it's like, oh God, there's no, vacation, right? So really, it took me a lot of energy, both introspection to say, what is it I really want? Because when you have your own, really in life, and especially when you have your own business, there are really no excuses and no one else to blame. And that, when you realize that I'm accountable for myself, my mindset, my physical health, my business status, that I can get help and support, but really I'm the one. And I think that's for mindset change of any type. First of all, it's to realize there's no one to blame. There may have been influences in your life that have helped develop these patterns. But when we own it ourselves, that I'm responsible for myself, then we become the leader in our own life. And then we can start making the choices that sustain us and support us. And not like, oh yeah, so-and-so, so-and-so. Well, if that's your reality, you're probably not going to make it in business, because it's about showing up and taking 100% responsibility for yourself and your life and your business. And that's a big mindset shift in and of itself, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Was that what you were?
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like we've talked about a lot of where people may be starting out, but now I want to talk more about what it's like and what the advantages are to being in that alive place. You know, like how much more can you see? What are you feeling that's different? How do you approach the world? And I'm sure you can even give more because you have more energy to spill over into the world. Mm-hmm. So what is that like when that like switch is on and people are feeling alive and they're showing up happy and excited every day?
Well, I think the most important thing is presence. It gives us presence, because we're fine. We're not only fine, we're thriving. So, I mean, how much of life have we all spent grasping for things that we wanted to feel like, I feel worthy, I'm enough, or had to prove yourself somehow, or that, how am I going to be seen? Or, you know, there's so many levels at which we are like, oh, I want somebody to love me. But once you love yourself, then you can stop looking for love and start sharing love. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing with presence. It's like, it's about the richness of the moment. And that doesn't mean you don't plan, right? Being present doesn't mean not planning. In fact, you need full presence to plan well. But I think that being here for the moments that are our life. I mean, in reality, here we are spinning on this amazing planet in a pretty cold outer space. We don't know everything that's out there. And yet here's this amazing planet, right? With beauty and abundance, and we've got our problems for sure. But the place itself is amazing, and life itself is amazing. And we can get so lost in the little details and nitpicky problems that we have in our world and our lives. And that then we start worrying. We're constantly about, oh, I didn't do it right, or how can I get it? So to be here, and my point about saying that about the earth is our lives are kind of fleeting, right? We're here for a short time. So what the difference is to me is I want to live in a way that at the end of my life and in every moment really going, hey, this is awesome. You know, this is amazing. I'm so grateful that I'm alive and I'm here and I'm experiencing the amazing thing of being alive and all its abundant, you know, at the world of possibility too, I think is that other piece. But that just to be here for the moments of our life and to know that we're giving it our best and being our best and appreciating it as much as we possibly can. And then to give back what our gifts are. Like, to me, where real magic happens is when our alignment meets a need in the world. Mm. Not only is that a place where you can monetize your gifts, but it's also where the magic happens, where the people that we touch can feel it, right? So yeah, I mean, to me, that's it. I want to be able to say at the end, wow, I rocked it. Not, oh, yeah, I did my best and I met all my obligations and, I kind of did what everybody wanted me to do. But no, I found myself. Like, that's the thing I think is the biggest gift of all, is when you find the power and strength of your own authentic spirit, and how each person carries like a spark of the big flame, right? That is life. And that we could each, like, we can let that spark ignite in us to really live the bigness and the greatness of what's possible for us. And that's going to manifest differently for everybody, but that radical commitment to like, that's who I want to be. I want to be all that I can be in this lifetime.
Yeah.
And not be one of the people who settles and says, well, I guess that's good enough.
Yeah. Wow. And it's such a big difference. And I feel like what I've noticed in myself and in other people is it's kind of a snowball effect. When you decide that you want more for yourself and you want more aliveness and more impact, you start making those changes and those initial, redirections of your mind and of your life. And it doesn't feel like you're getting there for a long time. And then all of a sudden you kind of shoot up and you're like, whoa, where did this come from? Now I'm creating my own schedule, or I'm only surrounded by people I love, or I'm not, mad at the traffic anymore. And it's like, it can take a little while to feel like where you're going is where you want to go. Did you have that at all?
Oh, for sure. I mean, there are these times I just think, oh my gosh, it's like the continue pecking at the egg, and you wonder when the heck it's ever going to crack, right? Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, there's light out there, and here we go, like you said, and things just come to life. Mm-hmm. And opportunities happen. And I think the more we can align ourselves and the clearer we can get in ourselves about what feeds us and what makes us come alive, then the more attractive we are to the world, right? Because we want to be around people who are alive.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. I say that all the time. And it's like creating your own magnetism. When you are filled with life and you're seeing things in a positive view, it's just natural that people want to know more about you and, take you up on your services or products if you're offering them. And, it's like you can see two versions of the same person standing next to each other. One of them is, not liking where they are, not present, complaining, has their head down. The other one is excited to be there, enthusiastic about what they're doing. Who are you going to walk up to, right? You're going to walk up to the person that's open and alive and inviting. And that's why it's just so important to love what you do, but love, how you're doing it, who you're being, kind of putting yourself back first in that equation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I took a leadership course a number of years ago, and I wanted to just share a little, because this, like what you're saying too about leadership, like that it was through CTI, the Coaches Training Institute, and they teach something called coactive leaders. And they talk about the 5 different types of leadership. And one is being the leader at the front of the room, right? Where you're teaching or doing or being the traditional leader. Another is being at the side, where you're co-leading with someone and you're sharing that responsibility. Another one is from the back of the room. And I've really noticed it when I go to groups, and from that perspective, I look and how are people showing up in that space when they're not at the front of the room? Are you down like this with the hood over your head, slumped in your chair and playing with this? Or are you showing up like with presence and listening and fully empowering the leaders who have the front of the room? So that's actually leading from the back. And then there's leading from within, and then leading from the whole, where we're taking in the whole energy and we're leading there. But I think the more that the definition of leadership in that model is, a leader is someone who takes responsibility for their world. And that can be as big of a world as you want to make it, whether it's yourself, your home, and out. But I think the more we own that leadership, right? We are all leaders, and how we show up makes a difference. If we're there, like you're saying, and not really there, it's kind of like nobody's home, right? But then, like you said, if somebody's fully present and alive and connected, it's like, wow, who are you? I want to know, I want to connect with you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's visible and it's energetic. We can feel these vibes from people. And it's just like if someone is passing behind you and you get a creepy feeling, you haven't seen them yet, but you're a little creeped out and maybe you move to the side. We're all connected energetically. And so there's these little tethers of where to go, where to look. And we're going to be seeking out those people who are alive because they're sending off the most energy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And yeah, I agree. We don't really talk about leadership of your own self, your own life very often. I don't really hear it, but I've noticed that that's really the biggest quality I've had to develop as I've built a business on my own, especially in, the spiritual plane where there's a lot of conflicting advice on what a business should be and if you should be having a business and mixing it with spirituality, which of course is kind of nuts because it's perfectly okay and wonderful to share your spiritual gifts for money. But yeah, there's so much conflicting advice out there on what to do and how to follow your path and what your purpose is and how to find your passion and all of those things we're talking about. And unless you have that sense of, okay, I've got my own filter, I'm my own leader, I'm going to know what's best for me, you're going to get lost. It's going to be really hard. And I think that kind of discernment is being a leader. And that's something that everyone has to develop if they're going to find their alignment, right? Because you can't really find your own alignment if you don't know what is lighting you up and making you happy and knowing that it's good to go in that direction.
And sometimes it's a process to find that, right?
Yeah.
And that's something I want to say is don't be discouraged if you don't know exactly what it is you want to do. I mean, I don't
think you'll ever know exactly what you want to do. I mean, I don't know about you, but for me, even though I've been on the same trajectory kind of for a long time now, what I actually do or what I actually offer changes all the time.
Mm-hmm. And a lot depends on your passion. What's my passion right now? I mean, and being able then to offer that and feel perfectly comfortable that I can write a blog about radical self-care or being a leader in your own life. And they're not contradictory, or being a leader in the world. It's like that yes and, because as humans, it's like we don't have to step into some kind of a box as an entrepreneur and say, okay, now this is who I am. I mean, it helps to be clear on your message so you can speak to your tribe out there, your audience, but not, I mean, who we are, we're so multifaceted.
Yeah.
As people, and the richness of the human spirit and the depth of the reservoirs in there to tap are just amazing. And so to not be afraid, to be, let it evolve, let it flow, and be present with what's moving you now, what's lighting you up. And if you don't know, sometimes what I do is send clients out on just sort of whim finding, whim chasing experiences to see like, well, maybe if I'm at the library and look at the bulletin board, or if I go to music festival and I da-da-da-da, or, it's like, just see, like, what would you like to see more of in the world? What's missing? What do you want to see less of in the world, right? And start learning about what are your values? What do you really care about? And what guides you? And what are your, the connecting points to your own spirit? So that knowing your core values, it's a term used a lot in coaching, so I'm a little reluctant to use it, but still it's like, my first step for people is to connect. Who are you? Who are you? And what do you need to come alive? And then let's see what you want to do.
Yep. And I'm glad you brought that up too, because it happens through engagement. You can't always think these things and know them. You need to experience different things to feel the resonance within you.
Mm-hmm.
You can have ideas in your head and then go and, see if it's true for you. But it comes down to engaging with the world and discerning that way, I've found. Because your head will often try to say, oh, well, you're not going to have fun at that event, or you're not going to meet anyone there. And it's almost in the beginning having to push past that initial resistance to developing yourself. That's really going to get you to where you want to go.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, I can't believe it's already been 50 minutes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I
completely.
Last time I looked over, it was 25 after. This has been such a great conversation. I absolutely love your energy and your words, and you're so filled with wisdom.
Oh, well, thank you. And you are doing such great work through your intuitive trainings and art and just helping people to connect to themselves. So thank you so much for having me. And
yeah, do you want to tell us about the download that you've created for us? Because on the intuitiveart.com page, you can go find her interview there and get the link. But we can also put it in here. I think it's cricketwingfield.com/Rachel.
/Rachel. Okay. And what I have lots of blogs and things for you to read, but if what I'm offering today is just a download of something I wrote about the first 5 steps to living from your heart, which is very connected to being alive. So if you'd like to read that, and it's there for you, free, and I'm not a spammer, and I'll never share your information. So thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. So go visit Cricket at cricketwingfield.com and get that download. The link, if you're on Blab, is now in the main screen. And then, of course, if you're on intuitiveart.com, we've got the link underneath the video for you. So that's such a generous offer. I'm definitely going to read through it too, because there's no stopping. There is no, okay, now you're here, you're feeling alive, you're done. It's a process. It's a way of life, where you're really, like you were saying, committed to your moment, being present.
And I just love to grow and learn. So I just keep expanding my arenas because that's what I love to do, because that makes me feel alive.
Awesome.
Yeah, and connecting with people. So this has been a very enlivening hour with you. So thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.
You're welcome. Have a wonderful day too. Thank you so much.
Okay, talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching this beautiful interview. I definitely got a lot out of it, and I feel more calm in Cricket's presence. And if you would like to follow up with Intuitive Art, you can go to intuitiveart.com and get the links we were talking about. You can get your free class to learn the intuitive art method that I teach, and interact with us. So I hope you have a wonderful day, and we will catch you next time.